Hi everyone, welcome to DOdaily Thursday Thoughts. The live episode is Des here, looking to answer your questions, pass on a little bit of information, and hopefully help you in whatever you're looking to find out. Of course, like I say, it's live. It's that episode where I get that little bit further out my comfort zone, just looking to pass on information and just looking to let you know how I'm getting on, processing my thoughts as the week passes by, my daily vlog, getting on in the evening to try and help and encourage others to achieve the things they want to do also. Before going any further, what I will say, if you've got anything to add to tonight's show, any questions you want me to answer whilst I am live, please do drop it in the comments. I'd love to create some interaction through that as well. Anything you want to say, even if it's just hello, anything you want me to expand upon, please do drop me a comment. Hit that like button. That's always important on YouTube, isn't it? And of course, do subscribe to the channel if you don't already. That will help massively. It will support what I'm trying to do. And I've already touched on the fact all I'm trying to do is support others. So you be supporting myself as well as everybody who does get something from my very small and unique YouTube channel. Of course, I've already mentioned it's a daily vlog. And I always start on a Thursday just by touching on the way I'm feeling. The main part of it is the questions that people have asked me, the viewer questions. But I always, every day, it's about letting you know how I'm feeling, where I'm at, trying to use different experiences to measure how I am, my mental health, my feeling, my emotions, all those things that make us tick. And today, feeling good. I'm actually pleased to report, been out for a run. Really, really, really tough one. Probably one of the hardest I've had for such a long time. It was a real struggle, but got myself out there, realised I've got to get back to some of these really tough, difficult, energy sapping sessions, when I'm not as fit as I want to be. And coming back from injury, it's about putting that hard work in and that hard graft, isn't it? It's about that all the time, in all honesty. But got out in the what felt like soaring temperatures, churned out a 5K, and preparing myself for an event at the weekend. Perhaps one I'm not quite prepared for, but I'll speak about that later. There's a question. So that's helped me sort of, what that has done, whilst it was a tough one, it's helped put me in a good frame of mind. I love it when I get out for a run. I was chatting with the guys I was with. It was part of a coaching session I put on here in Nottingham. And it's just put me in such a good frame of mind. I've had another busy day at work. Whilst it hasn't been particularly stressful, that it's been busy. I've been sort of flitting from one task to the other. And I mentioned yesterday on Wednesday workout, I mentioned that this week I've kind of struggled to sort of put everything together, process my thoughts in the way I like to on DOdaily, with the things that I like to talk about, and almost process my own emotions have been a little bit of a struggle. So getting out for a run has really picked me up. It's cleared my mind a little bit. And also, I also mentioned on Wednesday's episode yesterday that going to see Ricky Gervais had helped me in many ways sort of process my thoughts. Someone I feel I can relate to, whilst he's an absolute superstar and much more philosophical than I could ever be. I feel just listening to it, resonating with some of it, some of the idealisms that he puts across, and the positive environment he's trying to create. He kind of does it in a different way through a very sort of grumpy way look at the world in many ways, but it is all with positivity in mind. It's just realism, and that's what I'm trying to be here, isn't it? I'm trying to be realistic, relatable, honest. So that really helped me. Of course, a great show as well. A bit of comedy. I love to laugh. Positive people ought to be able to laugh. And he laughs at himself, I laugh at myself. And again, that's some of the things that I kind of picked up from that. And it kind of helped me in yesterday's episode and helped me put me back on track. Because after everything that went off here in Nottingham last week, it was a really difficult week. And that's what had knocked me off track. I was kind of wondering how I come back from that almost. How I talk about all the serious things I did last week and then level it off with some of perhaps the more mundane stuff. Stuff that's we all do, and the fact that, of course, I always want to start the week off on a real positive note, and it just seemed a bit. Um, it just didn't seem right, and that's where I kind of started the week. But I'm pleased to sort of report I'm back into the swing of on, getting some content out, and anybody who's looking in who might take something from it, I always appreciate any feedback, any comments. I know what the channel is. I know it's difficult for me sometimes to pass it across some of the messages I want to, but like like I always say, just trying to be that port of call on where somebody offering themselves out as somebody to communicate with, to contact, to talk to, but again, on your terms, so to speak. I've been talking a lot about this today with someone in particular about how we deal with people who are struggling, and how we sometimes have to be really, really careful. We've got all the best intentions in the world, but again, it's just about making it so people can dab in and dab into what I'm doing or talking to me as much or as they want. And I think the way I put things across in a one-sided way almost, because it's a YouTube channel, gives people that opportunity to feel comfortable what I'm doing, and that's all I really want to do. Whilst I'd love to be a massive inspirational speaker and really, really motivating, I know that I'm not there yet, and I'm probably never going to be there, although I'll keep working hard at it, because ultimately that's one of my little pipe dreams, and we've got to cling on to these things. So working hard at what I'm doing, working hard on my thought processes, as I've kind of explained already. And again, because I can do some of the things I want, after a long, busy day at work, rather than be sort of washed with thoughts about this, that, and the other, and how I attack it tomorrow, could get out with the guys, get a run in. Yes, it was tough, but afterwards, sat down, had a really good chat. Those endorphins are flowing now and feeling much better, and everything all of a sudden seems much clearer. And whilst I always encourage activity, of course, a lot of the motivations earlier in the week are geared towards that. Of course, it's about doing what you enjoy and making the most of what you enjoy, being yourself. And again, if I could take anything from Ricky Gervais last night, it's somebody who is just themselves. What I've learned over the last few weeks, especially, and it's all very timely with what I've just said there, is I was explaining this to the guys at the running. I kind of go down rabbit holes with YouTube, and then because you watch one video, it suggests another one and another one. I'm learning to sort of be myself and remove any negativity, any distraction, and people who basically don't sign into it. Not that they have to, because they really, really don't. But if they're disruptive, and if it's not, if it creates drama and such things like that, then I've got to be kind to myself as well, and if I want to keep doing the things I'm doing and be on my A game, on top form, and learning, which is not always that easy with a busy life, but if I want to at least give it a shot, then I've got to be that best version of myself. And a lot of, like I say, the things I've been listening to is just how I protect myself a little bit more, and sometimes say no. And that's one of the key things that I kind of took from Ricky Gervais as well, because he's very forthright in his opinion, but he's so very much himself. I try to be that most of the time anyway, and I know I am. I get criticised for it. I say certain things sometimes. I'm quite blunt and blatant and go full steam ahead, but I've also got really good intention and purpose behind all that. So I think as long as I know that, I can sleep at night, I can live with myself, and that's really, really important. But I think the reason I sort of get to that at this point is because of all that sort of indecision at the start of the week, and kind of questioning myself to some degree of how I kind of link everything, what's going on in my head together. And it really did affect me, because it stopped me putting out some content. So thankfully I'm back. Thankfully I can get stuck into another Thursday night. I'm really grateful for your questions. 3 questions as usual. Look, just looking over them. Nothing particularly out there, but some good questions nonetheless. What I always say: if anybody wants to ask me anything, please drop me a line. You can always email des@doorunning.org.uk if you're feeling uncomfortable with life, if you're not quite, if you don't want to put your name to it and you don't want it sort of come on and ask the question outright. You can email me, or you can get in touch with me through any of the social media, whether it's through the DOdaily channels or my own personal channels at Des Oldham on most things. Don't hide behind a silly egg or a silly name. It's just me being me again, the chance to be myself, and I think that's really, really important. And I'm learning that more and more as time goes on. That it's so important just to be that, because then if people are inspired by you, they're seeing the genuine thing, aren't they? And they won't be let down at some point when they realise that you're not quite what you cracked up to be. So I'm here to support, help, encourage, try and motivate, especially when it comes to activity, running, and all those kind of things. But also, if anybody's got any sort of issues, I've explained over time my mental health journey and where I've been with this. So it's all out there. It might take a bit of digging, and it'll all come up again, because it all acts as a timely reminder as and when something happens. Do stick with it, and do stay behind the channel. Getting into these questions, I touched on what happened in Nottingham last week, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, but this question does kind of relate back to that. Question one, thanks to Paul. Paul's a massive he's massive support to this channel. I know he watches the videos all the way from sunny Skegness. He's a big Forest fan as well. So I really, really appreciate you watching, Paul, and dropping me a question this week. He says, do you ever feel nervous? This came after last night's episode. I was out walking around the Trent. It was quite late, end of the day. It was getting dark. It was almost fully dark, even on the longest day. Shows how late it was last night. But I'm often out walking around the Trent. And he put, do you ever feel nervous being out, presumably on your own, latish at night, particularly after last week? Not really. When I'm around the Trent, I tend to walk around there. I should be, and I wouldn't encourage anybody to go out late night in the dark and not sort of protect themselves at least. But I wouldn't encourage them to go out if they felt uncomfortable. But I don't feel particularly uncomfortable around the Trent. Sometimes I see the odd strange occurrence and things happening around the river. It's quiet, it's dark. I don't feel particularly threatened. Of course, there's things that might happen, and there's certain areas that I wouldn't walk in at late. I wouldn't class myself as a for the want of a better word, a wimp. Things don't easily scare me, but I am conscious of where I'm at and what I'm doing. And Paul asked about in relation to last week and what happened in Nottingham and people getting attacked in the small hours of the morning. I've actually been out filming in the countryside, in the city, in parks, in things like that, when I do wake up to walk at such hours. And again, without being particularly sort of wary of what's going on, I am conscious of what the world is out there. Nottingham experience what happened last week, guys getting attacked from a crazed man, going around stabbing and running people over, and it was difficult for everyone to take, and it makes you start to think about safety and what's happening. The local councillor, who I'm not a massive fan, council leader, who I'm not a massive fan of, was insistent that Nottingham's a safe city, but sort of contrary to what I said before about feeling safe in the area where I live, and don't get me wrong, I live in an area that's got a little bit of a reputation as well. I live on the outer skirts of it. Nottingham's not a particularly safe area. Like most cities, I'm not shooting it down. I absolutely adore the place. I love. I'm really passionate, and that's why it kind of got to me quite a lot last week. But it's not particularly safe, and there is a lot of work to be done. I feel that not at the present, the council leader's saying that, because he has to, because it's on his watch. There's lots of work to be done in inner cities, especially to curb what happens when night falls. I do walk around. I'm not a small person, as you'll probably recognise. And I walk around where I live, and I've been approached, for all sorts of different things, and it can be a little bit daunting. I've been to the pub and I've been a little bit tipsy and walked home and been approached for this, that, or the other, and feel like I've been followed occasionally. So I'm always aware of it, Paul, and that's the short answer. But it doesn't necessarily knock me because, again, after something like what happened in Nottingham last week, we can't be scared, can we? I'm sure Kay won't mind me saying this. We went for a walk last week after the events. When we were trying to process everything, me and Kay went out late with the dog, and she was a bit nervous. But that's understandable, isn't it? Not everybody's of the same mindset, and she tends to walk the dog during the day, and I tend to do a bit in the night, especially in the winter. So it's just about doing the right things and doing what you're really comfortable with. But I'd say, I've got half an eye on what's happening around me. I'm not oblivious. I feel like I'm streetwise anyway. I grew up in the city. I grew up in an area that had its own reputation, and had its own sort of imperfections, I guess is the best word to describe it. So living in one now, it doesn't worry me too much. But I think sometimes what helps, bizarrely, is walking around with a camera. I can see what's behind me as well, and sometimes I do kind of look back and think, was there something there? And there's not. But it's just being aware all the time of where you're at, and sort of being present. Not. We all have moments when we go out and for a walk, or even sometimes when I'm running, where you kind of switch out and you kind of forget where you are, which is good for many reasons. But it's about being present in that moment and being totally aware of what's around you. Because unfortunately we live in a big bad world, and it can be that. Like I say, particularly in these big cities where there's lots happening and there's crime is at a much higher rate than it is elsewhere. And it's everywhere. I mentioned the areas I'm not treading on, the areas I've been brought up in, I live in. I love them both, equally as much. But it happens in all areas. There's not one place where you can sort of pinpoint as this is what's going to happen. Sometimes it's a really unfortunate coincidence of time. And when I look at what happened to those guys last week, one thing that really does upset me, lots of people, and they're not doing it for bad reasons. It's almost a cliche. They're saying that the people who was in Nottingham were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Well, that's absolute nonsense, isn't it? Because in many ways, I feel that justifies what happened to some degree. They was actually in the right place at the right time, because that's where they should have been, because that's what they wanted to do. Nobody's got any godforsaken right to go and plough someone down in the road and do what they did. Whatever time of day it is, whether it's dark, light, whatever's happening around them, there's absolutely no excuse. So I think what we have to do is kind of, to some degree, you see when the bombs went off in London and things happened in Manchester, we have to move on. We have to move forward. And we can't live our life looking over our shoulder, but we can be streetwise. We can be aware to it, and again, I find some of my best walks are at that time of day, particularly when there's no one around the river. And lots of people would find that eerie and difficult. And again, I'm not encouraging this, but for me, for processing my thoughts, for my own sort of soul and quiet serenity, after a busy day, or if I've kind of done work and then done my running groups and then done my DOdaily and all these sort of things, sometimes it's great just to be out in the dark when no one's around there. And I feel like I own the place to some degree, and I'm not being arrogant when I say that. It's just that you've got all this brilliant open space to yourself. But yeah, to answer your question, Paul, in short, to summarise, I don't really feel nervous, but I am really conscious unless I go to certain areas. There's a certain area within the area of Nottingham I live where I wouldn't go at night, but that's just a given. That's just what we all know, and I don't think that's being silly. That's just being sensible, if anything. What I would say is, We should be allowed to roam about at our own free will, but things happen, don't they? And I won't encourage anyone to do anything they feel absolutely uncomfortable with. Thanks for the question. I thought that was a great one, to be honest. Really, really appreciate that. Like I say, Paul, and hopefully I managed to answer it for you. A couple of comments. Eve says, "Good evening, Des. Hope you're well." Good evening, Eve. Lovely to have you on. Thanks for the support as ever. Really, really appreciate it. Looking forward to the football season starting. Get to see you again. And Kay says, "I think I get more nervous about being out than you do." I think that's just going back to that question. I think Kay worries about me sometimes as well when I do it. And perhaps sometimes I am a little bit blasé. And I've got responsibilities as well, haven't I? I've got things here that, of course, myself and Kay are married and the dog. So I think it's important for me to remember as well to make sure I'm safe when I'm doing things. I've always been a bit of because of the way life panned out before I met Kay, a little bit of a free spirit in the sense that I kind of did what I want, and I still do. Just nothing gets stopped. But of course, we have to consider those around us and the impact should anything happen as well, don't we? So thanks for that comment, Kay. And Peter, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it as ever. It's lovely to have even more Forest fans on because the bulk of subscribers are from there and from Door on Tours lot anyway. So really, really appreciate your support. Looking forward to those fixtures coming up. Like I say, if you've got anything to add to what I said there about sort of being out at night and what happened here last week, and how things like that make you feel, please do drop me a comment. I'd love to have your thoughts on it. Please do like this episode. Please do subscribe if you're new to the channel. That'd be absolutely fantastic. People are starting to tune in, so really, really appreciate that. If you're watching, drop us a comment on absolutely anything. If you're watching after the live show, still drop a comment and I'll look to respond to that as well. Moving on to question 2. Are you feeling ready for Round Sheffield Run this weekend? This has come from Lisa. This was the event I was talking about. I've got a run in tonight, really pleased about it. Touched on all that. Got a big event on Sunday called Round Sheffield. It's actually a different kind of event. It's roughly a half marathon, but it's all broken down into stages, and you do this tough stage and then you get a little bit of a walk. You kind of check out and check back in, and then they combine all your times of when you should be running, and it comes up with your time. I've done it before. Really, really enjoyed it. Fantastic event. Bloody tough. If anybody doesn't know Sheffield, it's hilly. No wonder we get good runners from Sheffield, the likes of Jessica Ennis. So many hills. It was so tough when I did it. I was in a lot better state. Probably not the perfect state because I haven't been for such a long time, and I'm not there now. Coming back from injury, I thought it'd be a good event. I thought I'd be a little bit more down the road with my recovery than I am now when I signed up for it. But because it's staged, because I can stop and have a walk, and that's not stopping and having a walk just because you're tired. That's because that's the nature of the event. So, but because that can happen, because it's kind of what you're supposed to do anyway, can be a little bit guilty sometimes of pushing on too hard when it should really take a break. But because it's like that, I thought it'd be a good event, and I've done a bit of training, tried to replicate some of the stages, and there's about 11 stages I think, and nothing's more than 2.5K. Some of them are like half a K, so it's just really, really great. I've mentioned the hills already. You get some fantastic views of Sheffield, so it's one definitely worth doing, especially if you're an endurance runner or training for a big event. A trail, it's like a trail event in parts. There's parts on pavement, so if you're training for some sort of ultra or something like that, I'd highly recommend it. Really well organized, and a really fab day. I'm actually doing it with a friend. Kay's doing it with another friend, so we're pairing up, and then we've got another friend doing it solo. So we should have some fun, and if it's not quite working out, we'll have plenty of support and encouragement for each other. But I'm just happy to be looking at events again. I actually got my London Marathon t-shirt on, which is barely off my back at the moment. When we do these things, we like to remind people that we did actually do it. And of course, I ploughed myself through London it was where my injuries sort of came from just before that. It was a real struggle. But I know I've got this steely inner determination to get through such things. If things were really sort of impossible, I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd have to call off. But been out for one tonight, and whilst I find it tough, hopefully it'll be a little bit cooler on Sunday. Although I know the hills are going to be a lot worse. Hopefully my partner's not as on it as she can be, because otherwise I'll be left behind. But I'm only kidding there. Of course, I wanted to have a great time as well. It's just one of those where I'm just getting out there doing what I love. I can't do it to the ability I want, but it's not the be all and end all. And I've learned that over the last few years. Always talk about my love for running, my love for events, and being around people who are inspiring and positive people, and that's what you tend to find, with some of them, not all of them, because it's just a cross section of real life. But people who I can spend time with doing what I do, and whatever the outcome, like London, it took me bloody hours, 2 hours longer than I'd hope it would take me to do any of these things when I did London. But it doesn't matter, does it? Because when you've got that medal around your neck, when you're drinking that pint, although I'm not, am I? Because it's dry June for me and Kay, which we're still doing well at. It doesn't really matter. You can tick it off and say you've had a great experience. So yeah, whilst I might not be quite ready in the sense that I'm perfectly trained and fit enough to do it the way I want to do it, I'm ready to do it because I want to enjoy it and revisit an event I've done in the past. It was one I did pre-COVID, and then was it pre-COVID or was it? I can't remember. Kay might remind me, but I seem to remember it was pre-COVID, and then it changed massively, and it struggled to come back. But I think it should be a great event now, anyway. So yeah, definitely looking forward to events, and again, enjoying what I do, getting something from it, finding the positive. I could moan and groan about the injuries. I could be furious that I can't do it in this time, or stressed that I might hold my friend back, and all these things, but the positive is we're going to have a good time. We're going to achieve something, and again, we'll have that medal around the neck just to show that we have actually got out of a comfort zone, and that's definitely what I'll be doing, especially with this event. And hopefully, it's just more training to do events in the future how I really, really want to do them. Peter says here, don't forget to drink plenty of water if the weather is hot on Sunday. Absolutely, Peter. I got told off by the guys tonight because I'm always insisting the guys that when I run with them that they drink plenty of water. We all know the importance of it. We all know that we need to keep hydrated. And today, through being busy, poor excuse really. There's no excuse not to go to the water machine and get water. I didn't have much water. I know over a short one, which I'm all right over, but it was hot. It was too hot, and I really struggled towards the end. So great advice there. For me, a reminder, even though I know, this is what the channel is about. It's sometimes things we absolutely know the right answer to, but we just need that push. So I'll be making sure I take plenty of water on Saturday and getting plenty down me on Sunday as well, especially to try and get up those hills. But great advice, and anybody should pay attention to that. Anybody who's taking part in activity, even if you're not, the importance of water. I'm actually listening to an audio book, one of my latest choices. I actually subscribe, $6.99 a month, and you get this a book every month, and I listen to them. And this month's is one about the importance of drinking water and some of the things we don't know. Can't actually think what it's called, but I'm actually going to find out because it's really, really interesting. And I think it would help lots of people. And when we're looking at well-being and trying to make ourselves better at the things we do, and sort of, sorry, I'm just getting this book up. It is actually called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. Like I say, it's an audio book, but it's absolutely brilliant. And it's fascinating. Some of the things that it mentions. Of course, it's a one-sided view, and it kind of tells us in many ways that we sometimes when we're hungry or when we feel like we need a a tablet for pain or something like that. It could just be the fact that we're thirsty and we're not very good at recognizing it. So give that a look up if that's something that kind of interests you. But again, thanks for that advice, Peter. Thanks for the question, Kay. Kay's just commented there saying it was in 2019. It was pre-COVID. I can't quite remember why I sort of brought COVID into the conversation there, but I know it definitely changed. So we decided not to do it, but now we're back looking to do it again. And Sheffield's just up the road, a little bit of fun getting there. Like I say, overindulging a little bit after, but not on alcohol for myself and Kay. So really, really looking forward to Sunday. Question 3: what will you talking about dry June and Sunday, which this won't happen? What will be your first alcoholic drink, or even what will your first alcoholic drink be when you finish dry June? Well, to be honest, when I do sort of say, oh, I could kill a pint, on a hot day like today after a run and around the running club, went to the gig last night, the Ricky Gervais thing, and you tend to have a pint when you go to these things, and it's a hot day and you're in a good mood, so you want to sort of enjoy yourself. To be honest, it's not really affecting me, and the reason I'm doing it this time, which is different to any other time I've not drunk, of course, I'm trying to lose weight, I'm trying to get fit, I'm trying to sort of aid my recovery by being a bit cleaner with what I'm doing in terms of drink and eating. But one of the ways I'm kind of motivating myself this time is telling myself that I actually want to not drink very much going forward. So whilst it's a target, it's a challenge. I'm just going to turn that light on. It's a little bit dark. Whilst it's a target and a challenge, it's something that I actually want to make a change to going forward. Don't get me wrong, I've got absolutely no issues with drink, apart from the fact, like most people, it creeps into my social life. I do it. I have a couple of beers around football. I have a couple of beers around running and events like I've spoken about, and several other things, because I like socializing with people. And it doesn't impact me massively, apart from the fact I want to be fitter and healthier and make some positive changes. And this time, I really sort of believe that I will have a drink come the end of the month. Myself and Kay have actually been invited to a festival put on by Kay's work here in Nottingham at Wollaston Park, a big gig. Sophie Ellis-Bextor headlining, so it's quite big. They're inviting people from all around the world. So we've been invited to that, and it's a free bar and it's a free gig. So it's a great reward, I guess, for going through June without a drink. But ultimately, I want to sort of get to a point where I cut out some of the ones where perhaps when I go to the gig, I don't feel like I need a drink, and all those little changes will just help with my running, with my training, like I say, with my recovery. So I'm not put too much thought into the drink, and I'm a bit of a mixed drinker anyway. That's one problem I do have with it. When I do drink, I tend to mix my drinks up a little bit. I like lager, I like cider, I like Guinness, and I get bored of them. And I guess that's why I've got to the point where I probably want to make this change as well, because I do get a little bit bored of them. And like most people who are aware of their own mental health, I get a little bit anxious after a drink. And the last time I got drunk, I did feel a bit anxious, and that's not, and we've all done that thing where we wake up in the morning and say, I'm never just drinking again, and we drink that day. So it's not a case of that. Do you know what I mean? I'm not down that road, because I do feel it's something I enjoy. It's just one of those things where I'd like to make a change for myself as I get older, just to sort of be a bit more conscious, perhaps take more water on, like Peter says. Sometimes, again, it doesn't help with hydration, especially when you've got running events. I've run half marathons, hungover, definitely not advisable. I only do that in many ways because I enjoy all the things I do. And whilst I love my running, I'm not an athlete. I've never claimed to be an athlete. I get so much more than that from it. It's not about competing or all those things. It's about assisting my mental health, making me fitter and lose weight when necessary. So it's important for me just to balance things up like that. but I'm definitely looking to make that change. But rather than go around the answers, I'll get back to the question. I think the first drink I'd like, most people around me know I love a dark fruits. It's not even proper beer, is it? Most people say, but I do love a strongbow dark fruits, and I think that might be the one that I anchor after, especially if I've done some activity. It's always refreshing and nice and a fantastic drink, isn't it? So when I get out to do that, really, really enjoy. When I get to drink, I'd really, really enjoy that. Sorry, Ken, the dog had just come back and interrupted me and throw me off track. But yeah, really enjoy dark fruits. But we'll see. Like I'm going to this festival, probably get too drunk, probably get hungover, probably feel anxious, and probably feel like I don't want to drink for the rest of July. But I'm sure I will for certain things. I just want to make it a thing around big occasions. And that's not a bad thing, is it? It's not a bad thing to make choices. And all I'm trying to do through DOdaily is encourage positive choices, positive mindset, and things that make us feel better about ourselves. As I've spoke about through there, getting out at night, getting to these events, doing running. I'm sure you probably sense that already, and realise that I'm just trying to be positive. Kay's made a comment on the back of that. It's definitely made me realise I can enjoy a lot of social events without alcohol that I didn't think I could. Me too, and we've just done several things. We've been to the pub, we've had meals, and we've sat there and drank soft drinks and still had that same kind of experience. So it's not the be all and end all, like I say. And whilst it's never been a problem for us, it's one of those things where it just, if you're doing what I'm trying to do here and almost create myself a well-being journey and good living, it's something you can do, but it can impact what you do as well, because it leads to bad decisions, bad food choices, going to bed late, not sleeping well, losing motivation for my running. And I've basically got to a point in my life where I'm not great. My running's not been great for such a long time. I've said this several times on DOdaily, and I want to get back to a point where I feel really fit and strong before it is actually too late. Eventually, age gets the better of all of us. It climbs on top of us, and we really struggle. And I just want to be in control of my own destiny. I spoke throughout this episode about the way I'm feeling and how running works, and even on how I'm learning to say no. I'm making decisions around my sort of intake of alcohol and nutrition and things like that. And I'm not perfect at doing all these things. Even most of the time, I'm not perfect at doing it half the time, but we've got to at least try, haven't we? We've got to give it our best shot, and if it doesn't work, we go again. We keep trying and trying and trying until I become that inspirational, motivational speaker that I'm talking about. No, just kidding. But I'd never get there without trying certain things and trying to do things better, would I? So that's all I'm trying to do. And I also try to understand the importance of why we do them, rather than just make it a fad, make it something to do, because it could appear like that. Some people might be looking at this thinking, "Oh yeah, he spoke about this before. He talks about that." Well, yes, but this is where we keep going again, isn't it? Making it a permanent change, ultimately creating habits. Through the coaching sessions I do, we set 5 targets each month, and there could be anything from running to not drinking, like this one, or not eating red meat, or whatever people decide is affecting them. I've had them in the past where it's going to bed at a certain time, or not looking at my phone after a certain time. And if we don't do them, if we don't complete them over the whole month, then that challenge gets carried over to the next month, and then we work at it again until we've mastered it. It's on that list to tick off, and it's a way of just making ourselves accountable, and making it better for ourselves ultimately, and realizing that it does take a lot of hard work. It really, it really does. So, comment for Peter: how many marathons have you done, and which one was your best? Great question. Always love talking about running if it's not about Forest. I have done 6. I probably should know this. Definitely, shouldn't I? I've done two. I've done two actual London marathons. I've done one virtual London marathon during COVID. I've done two Manchester marathons, and I've done the Berlin marathon. They're all really, really hard, put it that way. And I've never felt in the greatest shape before my second one, which was actually my personal best. My first two was like 4:18, 4:15. You know, before my second one was probably in a good way. Before the first one, I was at my fittest ever, but got ill that week, and then just sort of niggling injuries and things happening since, and perhaps a bit of complacency on my part too. Knowing I can almost sort of tear myself to bits in getting through these things. But the best one is always London, and that wasn't Manchester was my first two. But the best experience, the best race was my first London marathon. Absolutely incredible, to run around the streets, to sort of. I love London anyway. Everybody loves London to some degree, don't they? We go down and we enjoy it for days out and things like that. Enjoy it on football matches. But to run around the open streets and the crowds are absolutely amazing. But then to do it in another country as well, it's got its own sort of Berlin, all the history there, finishing under the Brandenburg Gate. You don't get much more iconic than that, So, and the sense of history you get from somewhere like Berlin is still really tangible. I know I've been twice to Berlin and noticed that. So fantastic marathon, and then I'm sitting on the fence a bit. Although I have said London will always be the best one. Manchester, just for a smaller kind of marathon, without all the razzmatazz of the big events. Fantastic, really friendly people. Really love Manchester. Absolutely love going to Manchester. Love the people. Love the nightlife. Love the city. I just think it's such a great place, and really fell in love with it after running an event. Actually, I did a 10K there, one of my favourite events ever. And I can't believe I've only done it once. Every year, Kay says to me, "Can we do that next year?" And I'm like, I want to do it again. And we never do. But that was one of my favourite events, finishing on Deansgate. So, again, there's lots to be taken from these things, Peter. But definitely London, 6 marathons in. You wouldn't think it if you looked at me now. You'd think I'd be stick thin and a model athlete who don't even think about drinking. But there you go. That's another thing. It's the enjoyment I get out of being able to do it. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to do it slightly better at times, and hence all the decisions and all the thoughts on trying to be positive and get myself to a different point. But it's not the be all and end all at the end of the day. Dawn's made a comment here. I'm sure she's just trying to make me feel better. You certainly shifted tonight, despite saying you struggled. A great one. Well, it was okay. It didn't feel it. I wasn't too concerned about the time when you're talking about it like that, but it really didn't feel it. I really felt, because of what Peter said there, and I'm going to pop that comment up again. Don't forget to drink plenty of water if the weather is hot on Sunday, and that goes for everyone. Whatever level of activity you're doing, we all need plenty of intake. But because I'd not done as much of that as I should, and again, this channel acts as a reminder for me, doesn't it? It's sometimes when I'm talking, when I'm trying to pass on information and talking about what someone else might have asked me, it just rings a bell in my head to think, go and do that. Sometimes on a Monday, because I'm like anybody else. I don't get scared on Mondays. It's another day to get up and enjoy. It's only, you only don't enjoy it if you've got bigger issues going on. But I might not feel like doing the activity. I might not feel like trying to create some Monday motivation. But because I do a YouTube channel and the tagline to it is Monday motivation, it tells me, in some way that's what I've got to go and do. It helps me attack the week. And then because I use that positive language of attacking the week, never miss a Monday, it makes me go again and again, and I'm using different motivations. So yeah, it's really important for me to keep at it, and anybody looking in to keep at it too. That's the questions, guys. Really, really appreciate you watching. sticking with it, of course. I'll pop up that email address again, des@dooney.org.uk. If you've got anything you want to add to the show on a Thursday, it's a bit of a free hit. You know, in the past, I've had people on, talk to them about different things, previewed running events, you know, talked about serious issues out there in the press and things like that. And again, I want to get back to basics a little bit and really sort of get back to getting people involved and doing that kind of thing. So whilst Thursdays at the moment are quite light-hearted, it's all just easily watchable stuff. Some people might think it's absolutely boring. That's fine. You know, it is just somebody going on about their feelings. It's my daily vlog. You know, it's a chance to see how somebody goes about their daily life. You know, someone very normal. Because when we see these mega superstars doing what they do, you know, it doesn't really relate, does it? Whether they're in a good place or whether they're talking about mental health and things like that. I'm not saying that they can't be an example, don't get me wrong, but sometimes, for me personally, it's the unmaterialistic things I get so much from. And yes, I spoke about Ricky Gervais and relating in that sense. So I do take something from that, but it's sometimes when you see those closest to you and those you care about or those you can relate to, you know, where you get the biggest inspiration from. And that's all I'm trying to be. Comment there from Peter. Great blog. Thank you, Des. Cheers, Peter. Really, really appreciate your support as ever. Just trying to do my best. It's what the channel's about. I'll be back tomorrow with a bit more. Didn't realise how long I've been waffling on this evening. So thanks for sticking with it to the end. I'll be back for Wake Up to Walk. I'll be out and about attacking the day on a Friday. The episode will be on tomorrow evening. Be summarising what's happened, touching on a little bit more of the things that have been said. Looking forward to the weekend, that big event, perhaps mentioning where I'm off to park run. Perhaps I might even get a vlog in this week. We'll look at all those things tomorrow on Wake Up to Walk. And of course, encouraging people to use getting out early to attack the day, you know, all the benefits of that and why it can put us in a good frame of mind. Once again, guys, thank you for watching. Really, really appreciate all the support, all the comments. Really enjoyed that. It's been fantastic. Until Wake Up to Walk, have a fantastic Thursday evening. Just doing it.